What we have here is a matte circle, and this matte circle is designed about a painting that I did called Treaty, which is in actual fact inside 23 mosques in Victoria and other places. And what it is to talk to us about the statement from the heart. Statement from the heart is about the fact that there are 4 key elements that 1,200 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people saw as important for recognition. And those 4 things are, in the first instance, voice. Now, voice is important in the statement from the heart because if you're not heard, you're not seen. If you're not seen, you don't exist. You know about terra nullius. This is about persona nullius. So we have to be heard so that we're recognised. It's about putting our voice, our sovereignty into the birth certificate of our nation and fulfilling and making whole that constitution. Once you've been seen, you then do treaty. Once you've been seen, you can do treaty because you cannot do treaty with people who don't exist. People you don't see, you cannot do treaty with. And treaty is very simply the agreement that we are both in this country together. We need to find ways to make sure that we both benefit from being here, we recognise each other, and we bring about ourselves coming as one. That's called conciliation. We've never done that in Australia despite the national anthem saying we have. We are not one and free. The next thing that we would do is this, is truth. Voice, treaty, truth. If you're heard, you have an agreement, you then tell the truth about what it feels like for both of you, both sides of the story, to be in this place. What it feels like for Aboriginal people to have suffered the dispossession, what it feels like for non-Indigenous people to have benefited from the dispossession. And how does that colonial memory on both sides affect each other? When you do that together, you begin to know that the feelings are very similar. You have empathy, begin to join each other. That's reconciliation. That's the most important part. We haven't got to there yet. This process is, as my Canadian Indian friends would say, a 7-generational process. Statement from the heart and the voice and referendum is about 3 generations in. We have about 4 generations to go. We're about to do voice, and we'll get to these bits as we move around. This one's Makarata. Makarata is that concept of coming together after a dispute, reconciling together after a dispute, and it sounds a bit Disney movie-like. You know, we all fight for 2.5 hours, get into a car, drive off into the sunset, the strings are playing and the music's, and we live happily ever after. No, this is not quite like that. For Christians, we know it really in the sense of Jacob at Peniel. Jacob had ripped off Esau, cleared out, became successful. He's on his way home 25 years later, and he's just not sure whether Esau is going to be nice to him or not. One of the key words in Makarata, the core word, is to do with a spear, and it's often about spear in the side, spear in the leg or the thigh. So when Jacob goes to the river, he sends everybody else on, he stays at the river, and then overnight he fights with a young man, and we often talk about that as being God or the Spirit of God. But in reality, I think, from where I stand, it was the young man he was 25 years before. He's fighting with his conscience about the acts that he did before. And when he wakes up in the morning, there are 2 things. His hip is dislocated, and he will walk forever with a limp in that moment of grace, that moment of change. It will remind him forever. And the other thing, he gets a new name called Israel. He has a new purpose. He still doesn't know whether Esau is going to like him, but he gets a new name. In Australia, in Aboriginal culture, this is how we do Conflict resolution. We get the two people together in the middle of the talking circle, yarning circle, hear both voices, we agree on what's happened, we tell the truth about what it feels like, and then somebody has to do reparation, spear in the thigh. That teaches you that you have to rely on others because you can't go and get your own food. You have to work with others. Takes the I out of mob, and it means that the community learns some stuff about stuff. Sounds brutal, but you can't do that if you're locked in a jail 500 miles away. That's why we have deaths in custody, one of the reasons. So when we finish that, the circle is closed again. For Australia, once we get to this place, if we follow this process over the next 30 years, we will find ourselves in a place where we can become a nation with a new name, and that new name is justice.